Hi guys, it's Friday, so that means I have another book review for you. This will be my second one on this channel. So yeah, I don't know if I'm any good at these. I really feel like I just recap the book, and I don't know if people like that or not. I'm not good at doing reviews. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more streamlined the more of these that I do. I'm sorry, my dogs are going to be barking in the background. I have no idea. They only bark when I'm filming. It's like they try to sabotage me. Anyway, you're just going to have to ignore that. I'm sorry. I'll try to get it out of the video if I can. But, so, yeah, I'm going to start I can't talk, and they got me all frustrated, and flustered. I guess I'm going to do, what I was trying to say is, I guess I'm going to do my, rating scale, like A, B, C, D, and F, just like in school. A is the best, B is really, really good, but not the best. C is average, D is below average, and F is a total fail. So I think that's the best way for me to express to you the way I feel about a book. So yeah, this week's book is D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover. He is a very interesting author, and I definitely think that if anything, if you don't want to read his books, you should at least read about him. He was arrested for being a spy. He was rumored to be homosexual, but he was married, and in that time, that was like a big deal. It was like so scandalous. So, yeah, he was just an interesting person. They lived all over. You know, he wrote a lot of really steamy stuff. I would even say erotic for that time period. I mean, this was written in 1928, and some of the stuff they write about wasn't even allowed to be published until the 60s in America, if what I'm thinking about is correct. I'm pretty sure that's right. So, yeah, pretty steamy stuff, kind of controversial, very controversial. He was an interesting person. I think you need to check him out. And this book, we need to talk about this lady, because she drove me absolutely nuts. Constance is her real name. She goes by Connie. Chatterley is Lady Chatterley. She marries a man who was injured in the war, and he's paralyzed from the waist down. So, in the foreground, you have the obvious frustration. She's sexually frustrated. She's not getting what she needs out of this marriage. She's taking care of him because, like I said, he's paralyzed from the waist down. She's just not getting what she needs out of this relationship, and he seems very codependent on her anyway. So finally, after years of this, she says she feels dead inside. She doesn't like the people. She says they're poor and they're dirty, you know, all that stuff. And that's one of the background stories, is the story of them being upper class and then the working class, the relationship between those two social classes of people. That's always in the background. It's something that you read a lot about. There's a lot of discussion through that about the book, and how there's a difference between the two, obviously, and how they feel about each other is really interesting. And how they treat her, because she is an upper class citizen, is interesting. And she kind of resents it, but at the same time, when somebody's not nice to her, she's like, well, that was rude. So she's a very wishy-washy character to me. But yeah, they lived together for a while, and she's known for having an affair with the gamekeeper, which is Oliver Mellers, I believe is how you say his name. But she also had an affair before that with a man that comes to the house to visit her husband. So, and he's a writer. So I'm not really sure why he comes to the house. I forgot why he was there, but he was a guest at the house. And she ends up having sex with him several times over the course of, there's a little span of time there, and they write back and forth, and she thinks she might be in love with him, and he comes back at one point and says, marry me, run off with me, you deserve better than this, I can give you all these things. And she's like, no, I can't leave my husband. But then they have sex, and then she's like, well, maybe I could, you know. And she was going to say yes to him, but then he was kind of mean to her, and she was like, well, what's that about? And she gets her feelings hurt, and that's where that ends. Later on is when she has the affair with the gamekeeper, and that's the big one, the one that everybody has heard about. And basically what happens is there's a new gamekeeper. She hooks up with him in a little hut out in the woods where she goes to hide from everybody for a little while, you know, to get her privacy. She hires a nurse for Clifford. That ends up being kind of a weird relationship too, which if you read about D.H. Lawrence, him and his mother kind of had a really close relationship because she nursed him and cared for him. When he was very small, he was very sick. And so I think that's where this relationship with his nurse comes into play in the book. It's just kind of it's kind of creepy, actually, especially after Constance leaves, because then he's becomes almost infantile, and the nurse lets him touch her boobs and stuff, and he's like, she says, I know it's weird, but you know, whatever. So that was a whole weird thing going on. But yeah, she has this big affair, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but she does end up leaving her husband after going on this vacation with her father and her sister. She finds out the gamekeeper has left because his crazy ex-wife comes back, or his crazy wife, he's actually married, comes into the picture and starts all this trouble and says that he's having an affair with Lady Chatterley, and that's very scandalous because he's of the working class and she is upper class. So her husband is like, you may not want to come back right now. And she knew something was up because he was like, I miss you. Please be sure you come back to me. He always has this fear that she's going to leave him. I don't know. It's just kind of it's very dynamic the way everyone's relationship works. So it's definitely worth reading just so you can see the dynamic of everyone's relationship and how it ends up. Like I said, I don't mean to spoil it, but she does end up leaving her husband. But you never really get that closure of she's happy, because through the whole book you kind of feel like she's a very depressed person. So yeah, you just kind of get that feeling. And then at the end, there is a letter written by him to her, by the gamekeeper, to Lady Chatterley, saying, no matter what happens with my crazy wife and your crazy husband, no matter what happens, I want us to be together. And she ends up being pregnant, and he says, I want us to have this kid, after he was like, no, I don't want any children. I don't want any children. Her husband actually told her to go off and have an affair if she could bring the affair back to Ragby so they could raise a child together, so he would have someone to leave all of his belongings and his money to and everything. So she does consider that for a while, having an affair and having this child by him, but then going back to her husband. So there's just a lot of little stuff going on in the book. It's very, what I would say, scandalous. I would consider, if my neighbor was doing it with, the pool boy, I would totally think that was scandalous and I would want to know all about it. So I just love gossip. And so this is kind of like a 1920s, super, super scandalous at the time soap opera. It's definitely worth checking out. It's very interesting. I was afraid that it wouldn't keep my interest because it's a classic. Some classics can be kind of boring. The problem I did have with this one, it wasn't very long. I believe it was like roughly 300 pages. And I got that in the from Barnes & Noble for my Nook. So it wasn't very long. The thing that caught me up was Nook has this great feature where you can just touch something that you don't understand. It brings up a definition, or, it links you to the little part in the back of the book. What is that called? The glossary? It's the glossary. Anyway, so I spent a lot of my time reading like the French terms and things like that. There's also a lot of biblical quotes and stuff in this book. So I thought that was kind of interesting, considering it was all about having premarital sex with other people while you're married to someone else. So all that stuff was in there, but there was a lot of biblical quotes and stuff in there. So I spent a lot of my time, and I think that's kind of what hung me up in reading it. I spent a lot of my time trying to understand parts of the book. But yeah, there were just a lot of weird little things that I noticed. Like her father is really weirdly in tune with what's going on in her sex life. I don't know. I thought that was kind of strange. The relationship with the with the nurse and Mr. Chatterley, that was kind of strange. A lot of weird little relationships going on. So if other people have read this, let me know what you think, because to me, the whole thing was just bizarro. But that's my opinion. I thought it was still a really good book, and I would give it a solid B. I definitely think it's something that you should read. I think it's one of those like college-bound books or whatever. So, yeah, definitely check it out. Read about D.H. Lawrence. He's a really interesting guy. Check him out. And I guess that's all I had to say about the book. It was worth reading. I really enjoyed it. It was very scandalous. So, yeah, check it out. It's a classic. You can't really go wrong. Well, I guess you can go wrong. I've read some really crappy classics, but this one's a good one. So check that out. And my next book is, I think I have it under here somewhere. I'm not very organized. Is H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. This is the next book. I'm going to sit here and do a review on this one real quick. This book actually surprised me. So, yeah, stick around. I'll have that one. I guess I'll post it next Friday. So, anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.